YouTube Ozic going the Godows is back, and there was a whopping 17 trades in the NFL over the last couple days, and I graded every single one of them. If you follow us on Twitter, you probably already seen my spreadsheet of grades, but this video, the purpose is to more importantly break down the trades, break down my grades, give you my thoughts, my thinking behind the grades. So excited about this, really excited about our in-season content, which starts next week, weekly picks and all, a lot planned for you guys this year. So join us, like, subscribe to notifications on. Follow us on Twitter, very important for we're always interacting with you guys, keeping you up to date, analysis during games, breaking news. Twitter subs get bonus content, a lot planned for the subs this year as well. Links pinned in the comments for that, other social media accounts, and our sponsor, Liquid IV, 30% off for a limited time. Usually 20, it's 30. GLD Shop's always 33%. Rocking their Giants trade. Giants made a couple trades. Rocking the Giants chain. They made a couple trades. This is probably my favorite one. It's a lot bigger than the other ones. They have all NFL teams, though. Very shiny, too. So check them out. Links pinned in the comments for anything that you are looking for. There's also a link for the spreadsheet in the comments. So you can just look at this after the video as we're going along with the video, whatever it may be there. But 17 trades to go through here. So starting at the top, Isaiah Simmons to the Giants. Cardinals get a 2024 7th. So you see my grades there on the right. A for the Giants, D for the Cardinals. Pretty straightforward one. You know, Isaiah Simmons for a 7th is a pretty good value steal for the Giants. Still has some upside. Can't wait to watch him in Don Martindale's scheme if he gets the chance to play a bit. I think he'll blitz the shit out of him. I think he has that kind of rushing upside. Some upside in coverage as well because of athletic ability, but kind of that linebacker / DB background. So kind of what the Giants were looking for. So that'll be a lot of fun. What's stopping him from being an A+? It was tremendous value. I do love the trade for the Giants, but it is close to kind of a wow trade, but, usually want to save the A+ for me jumping on my seat, but mainly what's kind of keeping it from having that extra plus there is it could be a rental, and so far Simmons has been underwhelming. It's kind of why he went for a 7th, even though he should have went for more. But he's been underwhelming. He kind of can continue to be underwhelming in that 1-year rental because he might need some more time to figure it out. So, but overall, great trade for the Giants. Gave him an A. Cardinals, yeah, they're plain simple. I thought they could have got more. Were they desperate for a 7th? I know they're looking for picks. They're in rebuild mode, but 7th round pick. Simmons would like to see him in Gannon's scheme. I guess he didn't want to see him in his own scheme, but they could use these upside players. Could they even have gotten more with the compensatory pick? If they held on to him, played him this year, because they're not, trying to win a bunch of games this year anyways. They're not, they're not in that type of position. So, 7th is just so low. It's just so low. So, A and a D there. A for the Giants, D for the Cardinals. Obviously, a lot more Cardinals trades to talk about. The next one, the Cardinals traded Josh Jones to the Texans, the offensive tackle, who I think could have some upside playing guard, but I think the Texans use him at tackle. And they swap picks in 2024. A 7th goes to the Texans. A 5th goes to the Cardinals. So this one's a little better for the Cardinals. Josh Jones was decent for them. Still has upside. Had some starts for them, but they have DJ Humphries and now Paris Johnson Jr. From the draft, obviously the rookie from Ohio State. And he's on an expiring deal, so it kind of made sense to get something for him. They do swap picks, but they still gain that 5th round pick. They don't gain a pick, but they still gain a 5th round pick. So that to me was a B+. Maybe they're lacking a little bit more in depth, and maybe it could have been in the A range if they didn't have to swap picks. But overall, it's good for the Arizona Cardinals on the path that they are heading. So B+. And the Texans, I gave a B. So overall, pretty solid. Josh Jones is a good decent young tackle. Can be good, I should say. And they did a swap of picks. They do lose out on their 5th round pick, so it is kind of a bigger swap. I guess my only knock on this is, they almost don't want to have to play Josh Jones, because they did, again, swap picks. They did give up a 5th round pick, but their best case scenario in Texans world, is them not playing Josh Jones a whole lot because they want their star tackles, or who could be a star on the right side, and Titus Howard, who they just paid a lot of money, but they want both those tackles, the other one being Tunsil, obviously, to be playing. So that's kind of best case, which, if you get more of that, which they needed Josh Jones right now, but if you get more of that, then would this be worth it? And they're going to have to give him a new deal potentially. So there are downsides to this one, but overall, it's a guy that can help you right now. It's a swap of picks. He's got some upside, kind of young guy to mesh well with the current group. So I gave that one a B. So a B for the Texans, B plus for the Cardinals. Another Cardinals trade now. And that is Josh Dobbs going from the Browns to the Cardinals, and the Browns and Cardinals swapping 5th round pick, 7th. That sounds familiar. 5th and 7th swap. It was the previous one that had to do with the Cardinals. This one just didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, because before this, and kind of what it is the Cardinals are rebuilding. They're trying to gain picks, and I guess they wanted a quarterback. They wanted to get better at quarterback. Not counting Kyler Murray because he is out. But they wanted to get better at quarterback, guy that understood the systems. That's kind of the positive. He can fit the system. Drew Petzing coming from the Browns as the offense coordinator in the Cardinals, so he can run that offense. That's a positive. But I don't know. It's kind of like a contradicting trade in a way, because they're gaining picks. They want to gain picks. They're focused on the future. They don't really care if they win games right now. That's just I know the players do. That's just the way it is. So why? I know it's a swap, but why give up a 5th when you can use that 5th? You just got an extra one. For a rental quarterback that's really not going to do anything for you. You're not really desperate to win football games this year, obviously. So was there like a big point to this? Would you just rather play? I know maybe Clayton Tune's not ready, but I don't know. Wouldn't you just rather have, I know it's a swap, but wouldn't you just rather have the 5th round pick if you're the Cardinals? Like, you could have loaded up on the 5th round picks, loaded up in picks in general. So it just didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But Dobbs expected to be their starter, and I guess could he help them? Sure. So I gave the Cardinals a D. I wasn't trying to give him a worse grade than that for like such a small trade, but a fifth round pick was involved. I think I like that one less than the Isaiah Simmons one, actually, though, if I had to pick, but I have them the same grade just because it just doesn't really make sense. Like, keep your 5th round rather than hanging on you're getting Dobbs for a year when you're not really caring if you win games anyways, But if they do care, they're not really doing a good job with the roster, So I don't know. And the Browns, I gave them an A. This is great. I mean, it's such a smaller trade, so it's hard to give A pluses out. But before this, they announced that Dobbs was second on the depth chart ahead of DTR, and that kind of make other teams seem like, all right, I guess they're not going to cut him, and they're serious about Dobbs, and that's kind of the way to do it. Other teams go like, hey, we might cut this guy, but do you want to trade for him? It's a little ridiculous. It's not the smartest thing in the world. The Browns just did it right there. They bluffed pretty well. They bluffed pretty damn well, and it worked out. And the Cardinals, and they ended up getting a 5th round. I know it's a swap, but they ended up getting a 5th round pick out of it. So I gave them an A. I thought that was excellent work. Again, it's hard to dish out A pluses for a smaller trade, but it was just excellent, smart work there from the Cleveland Browns. And next was one of the bigger ones that happened. Trey Lance, and surprising, going to the Cowboys. We thought maybe Minnesota, Detroit, which Detroit did show interest, and I heard the Ravens did as well. But ends up going to the Cowboys, so he ends up going from a 3rd-string quarterback to a 3rd-string quarterback because Cooper Rush played so well as a backup filling in for Dak that, especially right now, he's got to be that 2nd string. But overall, you trade a 4th-round pick, for a quarterback with his traits, even though he's been very underwhelming and injured. Quarterback with those traits, still with upside because how young he is. It's not like it's set in stone like what he's going to be. I think you gamble on that at that position, especially because if you hit a jackpot, if he's developed right and he hits his stride, he hits that upside, he could be special. Now, are we counting on that? No. If we were counting on that, it'd be like an A+ grade. But I give it a B because it's worth that gamble, and I do like him as a 3rd string this year for the Cowboys behind Dak and Rush. I know the 49ers system has been a little better for quarterbacks, I suppose, better than anyone. You're making guys look better than they are. Purdy, Darnold. I mean, it's only been preseason. He's already looking better. But I don't know. The Cowboys, Cooper Rush played pretty well for them. Lance learning from Dak could be pretty solid, and it's not really like it has to be a hurry because he's going to be under contract again in another year. So overall, I think it's pretty solid. Yeah, I think this would have been a much better grade if it was a 5th rounder instead of a 4th. I kind of figured it'd be a 4th or a 5th. I was pretty firm on that. It'd be one of those. So kind of we've been talking about the last week or so. So I gave him a B. 49ers, I gave it a C+. It's kind of tough to grade the 49ers because 4th was probably like the best they possibly could do at this point. Just how much they gave up for him, and you think he still kind of deserved more of a shot in a way. I'm not saying they should have played him over Purdy. But then again, what if Purdy's just not right after that injury? Are they going to regret trading Lance? So I gave him a C+. Again, fourth was probably the best they were going to do at this point, but it actually wasn't if you kind of backtrack a little bit to earlier this offseason, just a few months ago. He was actually worth more. So did they lose a little bit by waiting? That's the tough part there. So B for the Cowboys, C+ for the 49ers. Next one, another Browns one here. Pierre Strong, they added the running back, second-year running back from the Patriots, and the Patriots get Tyrone Wheatley Jr. So I gave an A- for the Browns and then a C+ for the Patriots there. Pierre Strong, had a really good tape at South Dakota State. He did play some bad competition. I mean, there was some holes where you literally can drive a truck through, but he was hitting them, and he was flying after, through the hole after the hole. So that was fun. He was very productive. A little underwhelming, but it was only a 1-year trial there for the Patriots. I think it's a good system he goes to at the Cleveland Browns with their outside zone, which the Patriots were trying to run beginning of last year. It was a little bit of experiment, change it up, and it didn't really work out. So it just makes more sense as a fit going forward to go to the Browns. It's such another one, such a small trade, here, but he can continue to, not work out and be a little bit lower on the depth chart. Jerome Ford's going to come back at some point, so how much will he actually play? A- for the Browns. Tyrone Wheatley Jr. Yeah, C+ for the Pats. I mean, Strong, still had some upside. Wheatley Jr. is a guy that I guess he's got upside, but it's a guy that I just don't expect ever to be more than a depth guy. Will he be more than a third stringer even? Like, is that like the maximum? So it was a tough one there, but it was such a small trade. It's kind of hard to. And Strong really wasn't going to, run scheme wise, wasn't really going to fit the Patriots going forward. But those are the grades I ended up with there, and that interesting trade. Speaking of interesting trades, I thought this was an interesting pick swap, the way this Rams-Steelers one was laid out. But Kevin Dotson, the guard of the Steelers, now is a Ram. He goes to the Rams. The Rams also get a 2024 fifth and a 2025 sixth. And the Steelers get a 2024 fourth and 2025 fifth. So, Dotson had some hype, from the Steelers. Didn't really work out. They've replaced him with Sumalo and James Daniels as the starting guards. So he goes to the Rams, and the Rams desperately needed a guard. This pick swap is super interesting, though. It's like, first glance, it looks really good for the Rams, and overall it's solid. I gave him a B because you get a guard that's probably going to start for you, and you get a fifth and a sixth, but then you do lose out on your fourth, which a fourth-round pick. Usually don't see swaps around here unless it's like during the draft. So fourth is, I value a fifth too, but something about that spot in the draft, I kind of always said that. Like, the difference between a 4 and a 5, it doesn't sound like much, but I do think it feels like a little bit more. Just getting that extra fourth, and then in 2025, a bump up for the Steelers from a fifth, to, instead of that sixth. So, yeah, it swaps, but the Steelers move up. They'll have an extra pick in the fourth. They'll have an extra pick in the fifth in 2025. The Rams will be picking in the fourth round this upcoming year. Like, why don't we have a fourth again? Oh yeah, we don't have it because Dotson. At least they get a fifth round pick back. But so I actually do like those swaps for the Steelers because you think, what if Kevin Dotson was traded like straight up for a pick? Would it have been like a 6th round pick? I kind of like moving yourself up into the fourth. A lot more actually, just having that extra fourth because of a swap deal. I like that, and Dotson's on an expiring deal, so that played a big factor here. I gave this Steelers a B+. Overall, it is swaps. They didn't gain a pick, but I do like the swaps. They're kind of lacking on the guard depth, though, and Dotson was decent for them at one point. And they also traded Kendrick Green, which we'll talk about, so they're kind of lacking in the depth because of this trade, so maybe it's a little risky if somebody goes down. But overall, I kind of do like the swaps. I gave them a B+. Rams, I gave a B. You get a starting guard in there. You do some pick swaps there, but yeah, you will be out without a 2024 fourth because of the trade, though, and they're a team that just wants the draft capital, I think, going forward. So that's kind of the downside to it, so I gave them a B. Another Patriots trade. We got Vederian Lowe, second-year offensive tackle out of Illinois, going to the Patriots. The Vikings get a 2024 sixth. I gave the Vikings a B+. Vederian Lowe, you wouldn't, Isaiah Simmons goes for a 7. You see some of these other trades. You think Vederian Lowe is either a swap, most likely a swap pick, or maybe a 7th. Maybe he's cut, and the Vikings get a B+ out of it. Such a small trade, though. And then I they were kind of lacking tackle depth at this point. They did add Questenberry yesterday. But I ended up giving a B+. I think pretty decent value. The Patriots get a B. Yeah, I think appropriate value probably would have been a 7th kind of maximum, but he does have some upsides. A guy they kind of want to work with. They think he fits their new scheme, but kind of their old scheme, what they're going back towards. So it's not a bad deal. You got a young player, second-year player with some upside. So I gave the Patriots a B on that one. A very small trade there. Kicker trade, there's actually a few of them we're going to talk about, and this is one of them. The Browns get Dustin Hopkins, and the Chargers get a 2025 7th. I actually ended up giving both teams a B+. The Browns badly needed a kicker because, unfortunately, Cade York has not worked out, not been working out. So they trade a 2025 7th, for a kicker, and they do that. So it's, next year 7th. They still had to trade a pick for a kicker, which, if having to do that's never really ideal, not that it's like a bad value deal or anything like that. So I give them the B+. Should be an upgrade from Cade York. You never know, though. You still could have kicker issues with this one. So I felt the B+ for the Browns. And the Chargers, they get 2025 7. So they mainly the positive is they get a pick for a guy they were going to cut because they're rolling with Cameron Dicker. So overall, that's what kind of keeps it up. When you put it like that, their guy they were going to cut, they get a free 7th round pick almost. Sounds like an A range pick grade. But, there could be a scenario that didn't, we don't really know for sure they made the right choice. Yeah, I agree overall what they did, hence the B+. But there's a chance Hopkins is better than Cameron Dicker. So could you be regretting it? There's some sort of chance. Not counting on it, but there's some sort of chance there. So overall, this was kind of what both teams needed to do at the end of the day. It's not like the greatest thing in the world for both teams, but overall, it's pretty good. So I gave that both teams actually a B+ for different reasons on that one of 3 kicker trades there. Now we have Dan Feeney goes to the Chicago Bears, the guard from the Dolphins. The Dolphins get a 2024 6th. So this was, I think, pretty good value for the Dolphins. I thought Feeney would have been like a swap of picks, maybe a 7th round pick. So overall, pretty good value. Are they a little lacking on the depth now? Maybe a little bit, but overall, this is pretty good value. So I gave them a B+. Look what some of the other players, were going for. I thought, again, Feeney probably a 7th round or swap value. So that just, makes the value not look too great for the Chicago Bears. Nothing too horrendous or anything like that. Not too bad, but I do keep it as a B because the Bears were kind of got pretty desperate for guard help. Situation with Nate Davis going on and Tevin Jenkins on the IR. He's going to be hurt for a month, or he is hurt and he's going to be out for a month. So they kind of got desperate. Which was unfortunate. That's never good. But looking at the circumstances, you make a deal for a guard with some experience, like a high-end backup for the Bears. Not a high-end backup for every team, but might get some playing time right away because of the situation they got. So overall, decent. It's not the best situation around it, though, why they had to do it and they got desperate. But, B for the Bears, B+ for the Miami Dolphins. A very small trade there. In an extremely small trade, Amir Smith-Marsette, receiver, goes to the Panthers along with the 2025 7th conditional. So the Chiefs and the Panthers will swap if it makes sense. If the Chiefs pick is worse, the Panthers pick is better, which is expected. And I think the Chiefs expect that as well. So it's kind of just a move up in the 7th round deal. So it's such a small trade. I give the Panthers a B-, so it's hard to go anything under the B- because it's just such a tiny trade where you're just swapping picks in 2025 and you gain a receiver. I just thought, the Panthers, so by doing a trade, if you're trading for a receiver, you think you need a depth receiver. You think you need a receiver in general. I thought there was kind of better options for them out there. There's loads of better options. Amir Smith-Marsette's been bouncing around like crazy, and he's just been in the league for a few years. Vikings, Bears, Chiefs, now Panthers. So, he's played with Adam Thielen, so maybe he had some input. I have no idea. But I gave them a B-, and it's a guy that Chiefs were most definitely going to cut, so they possibly moved up in the 7th round for a guy that didn't really hold any value at all. But such a small trade. And those are conditional picks, so I thought the B was kind of the maximum there. So probably the smallest trade out of all of them here. And we got Boogie Basham to the Giants. And the Bills get, it was actually a swap picks. I forgot to update that. So it's a 2025 6th. We can update that right here, right now. 2025 6th and a 2025 7th. So there you go. It was a 2025 late round pick swap, exactly what we thought it would be. Boogie Basham was really good at Wake Forest. Remember us talking about it, everybody talking about it, him, as in terms of the pre-draft process, the draft evaluations, that he was kind of a tweener. Like, he was really good, but he's this big body guy, wins with power, sometimes rushes on the inside, rushes over the tackle, inside the tackle, not always off the edge. And he's not the most speedy guy off the edge. So it's like, is he better suited to play like 3-4 end or play 3 technique? I thought probably, even though he got a lot of sacks rushing, but he didn't just rush off the edge. So, but he goes to the Bills in the draft, obviously tries to play 4-3 end. It just hasn't worked, and I think mainly the lack of explosiveness, the lack of speed off the edge kind of is what did it. So he goes to the Giants, and initially I liked this because I thought they could still do that, but they can try him out at 3-4 end, like in terms of the depth chart behind Leonard Williams. That's kind of where I thought like the tweener player would fit. Because he just hasn't worked out as an edge rusher. But it sounds like there was a comment made that the Giants look forward to adding him to their edge group there. So they might try to work with him out there. Again, he has upside. He was supposed to be a little better in this. It's not really a surprise he's been underwhelming, though, because the lack of speed, and he was a tweener player. So this is a guy that, it looks like pretty good value because it's a guy with upside. He was really good in college. You're only swapping 2025 picks, but it's a guy that probably, just history shows, like this type of player probably continues to stay underwhelming. So that's the tough part, but upside's there. It's little risk, potential high reward. I give the Giants a B. The more I'm talking about it, the more I know a lot of people like that one. The more I'm talking about, maybe kind of closer to that B minus. If you made me tweak it, I'd probably go like B plus or B minus. I'd probably go closer to that B minus. Because you do give up a 6. Like, you swap a 7 for a 6. You do not have a 6 now, because of that. Where a guy that I don't know if I'm really, want to be optimistic. I don't know if I think he continues to be underwhelming. I would like for them to use him as 3-4 end. We'll see. But the Bills, I give a C plus because it's just like, I think he could have found a better home team that would probably feel more comfortable using him right. 3 technique, 3-4 end. Maybe got something a little more for him. And it's just such a quick. What's the word I'm looking for? It was so quick to find out that he didn't work out. Like, already trading him for a swap of future picks. So it's a little underwhelming there. So I gave the Bills a C plus on that one. Second kicker trade, and this one I did not like really for either team, to be honest. The Broncos get Will Lutz, the Saints' longtime kicker. Saints get a 2024 7th. So the reason I didn't really like it a whole lot for either team, the Broncos, they had Brett Maher. They cut him. Well, they had McManus, and they surprisingly cut him. I know fans act like that wasn't really that surprising, but at the end of the day, I think they should have just rolled with McManus. But they cut him. They have Maher, who was actually pretty decent last year. But then they cut him and then trade for a kicker. Like, you ran through 2 kickers that would have got the job done. Would they have been the best kicker in the league? No. I mean, there's a million teams with way more problems, like far worse. But you kind of ran through kickers to trade for a kicker. So I don't really love that. Would you rather, I know it's a 7th round pick, but it's still a draft pick. Would you rather had Maher in this pick? Well, you'd probably rather have McManus. Would you rather have Maher in the pick, or would you rather have Lutz trade the pick? I guess you can argue either way, but because it's so close, I'd probably rather keep the pick. I didn't really like them running through kickers just to end up Sean Payton trade for his old guy, who also took a step down last year. He took a sizable step down. So I give it a C plus. At the end of the day, Sean Payton got a kicker that he likes. He's somewhat of a clutch kicker. I don't think he'll be as bad. I think he'll be a little more accurate than last year, even though it looked like he's declining. But something tells me he'll be a little bit more in terms of the percentage. Will be better than last year. I would hope so. If you trade for a kicker. So I gave it a C plus. But for the main reasons I explained, I don't love it. It's not the worst thing in the world, obviously. C range is not like a bad grade. I think D and F, those are bad. And the Saints get a 2024 7th, and I give them a C. I guess at the end of the day, it's a guy. Were they really going to cut him though? But they were going to roll with Gruppy. And so I guess they got something out of nothing. But wouldn't you rather have Lutz? I know he took a step down last year, so that was the thinking. But I think he could play a little better than he did last year. And then for Gruppy, I think I know him at Notre Dame. His issue was the longer kicks. Like, he's pretty damn efficient, short range. He should be really good on the extra points. Went 2 for 3 preseason, so such a small sample size, and he missed a kick. It was one of the longer ones, I think. But that was such an issue. Like the 40-plus kicks, it's like, yeah, it's starting to get tougher. But then the 50-plus, it's like, do you even attempt them? So maybe something's changed. I'm kind of just using prospect evaluation, what I saw in college. So maybe they feel like things have changed a little bit. But Lutz, even though he took a step down last year, he was so clutch for them, especially like a big kicks late in the game, longer kicks, so would you rather just kept him? So I didn't love the trade. Will they be like thinking we probably should have kept him, down the line here? So I didn't love the trade for either team on that one. I thought it was an interesting one. And then this kicker trade I actually love for both teams. The Titans get Nick Folk. The Titans need a kicker pretty damn badly. So they trade a 2025 7th for a pretty good kicker and Nick Folk. Do think he has to clean up on the extra points though. But a pretty good kicker. He's been very solid for them and for the Patriots, and they just drafted a guy. They're kind of looking out for the future. So that's the reason they're moving on from him. So I thought this is pretty good for the Titans here. Giving up a 7th, but not even from this year. And the Patriots, I give an A-. They were gonna roll with the rookie either way, which makes sense. Like, even if Folk is better than him, where you drafted, where you drafted your kicker, your rookie is pretty much no matter what, that's the guy you're rolling with for now at least. But Folk could end up better, but so I give the Patriots an A-. So I thought overall that was a good one for both teams. So a little bit different of a kicker trade grades than the last one. Next up, we had in division trade. Neil Farrell, second-year defensive tackle, going. So just a rookie 4th-round pick last year, going to the Chiefs for a 2024 6th-round pick. Chiefs are pretty desperate for interior defensive linemen. It doesn't seem like they want to spend a lot of money there either. So you get a second-year player that really hasn't got a shot yet. And Chiefs are very good at developing players really everywhere on their roster. Guy still has a lot of upside. He had some really good moments on college tape too. It was a boom or bust type tape. Like, he's got like highs are super high, the lows are super low. So you just got to have the right coaching staff to kind of figure it out. Chiefs are very good at developing young players. So it's probably a guy they had on their radar during the draft a year ago, I'm assuming, for them to make this trade right now, which is a good sign because they draft very well. They also draft very well with kind of those later picks too. And they just spent a 6th-round pick on a guy that the Raiders got in the 4th. So I gave the Chiefs an A-. I guess why not? Better. Overall, I like it, as you could tell. They're just trying to patch some things up while Chris Jones is out, but they did lose, Kalen Saunders, guys like that. Maybe they needed a little bit better, a little bit more of a sure thing, because I'd assume Farrell will probably be playing for them this year. If Chris Jones is still out. Not that he's replacing Chris Jones, don't get me wrong there. It's just, so could they have done better? I guess it's tough at this time, but I gave him an A-. In the Raiders, I gave a C2, and I guess they got to look at Farrell in that year. They said, he's probably not going to be good, so we'd rather have the 6th-round pick. So obviously that's what they're thinking, but man, I don't like basing things off of, a rookie season and then I guess a training camp preseason only. There's such thing as guys with upside and working with them. So they're kind of doubting their own coaching, their own development. Over there, I just don't like giving up a player that quick. And it was a player to me that was kind of a raw upside player where like this guy could be good, but you got to give him time to work with him. He's one of those types of players coming out. Like he wasn't one of those players where you're going to know right away or not. So complete opposite. So I don't really love giving up on him right away, but obviously they saw something. He didn't really play for them. Couldn't get on the field much last year. They got a 6th-round pick for him. If he continued not to work out next year, the year after, he probably would have been worth nothing. So I could, the first part of my explanation almost sounds like I give the Raiders a D or something. So, but that next part kind of bumps up to a C. That might have been generous even. It's kind of the pass to McDaniels, and he's probably more so drafting the offensive players, but when he was with the Broncos, he was in charge of some of the, picking those players and it just didn't really work out, and then just giving up on your own players early on. it's not the best look and kind of helping out your rival there, but a pretty good value deal, which I think is for the Chiefs, and they can kind of get the upside out of them. So I didn't love that for the Raiders. It was weird, kind of a weird one. And next one, the Texans trade for another offensive lineman. They also have people were getting confused. The Texans have Kendrick Green, who was a first-round pick last year on the roster. He is actually out for the season, and he was a little disappointing last year too. So they needed a guard. They needed a guard anyways. They needed a guard, and Kendrick Green could also can play center. He actually played center the 1 year he played for the Steelers. At Illinois, he played both, but more guard. I liked him as a guard. I watched his tape in that outside zone at Illinois, and where he stood out most was at guard and kind of pulling. He goes, where you stand out in outside zone, you get out. You get out wide and you block downfield. So that's kind of where he stood out. So I liked him at guard for sure, but I guess there's some versatility. But overall, I kind of like this one for the Texans. I know Steelers a lot. I saw on Twitter, interact with you guys all the time. Steelers fans were saying he was really, really bad that 1 year, and he was. He struggled. But, first off, it was 1 year. It was his rookie year. It really was his only crack at playing. And, do you want to base everything off the 1 year? Like, by that logic, everyone's going to stay the same. Like, Kenny Pickett's going to be the same as what he was his rookie year. George Pickens going to be the same. Not that they were bad or anything, but rookies can play better if they get another crack at it, right? So I don't really like that logic that, it's a great trade. It's a bad trade for the Texans because the guy in his only year playing, and at center, not to mention, I liked him at guard. I'm going to continue on with my my prospect evaluation there. So he played center that 1 year. It didn't really go too great, but that doesn't define his whole career. Not saying he's going to be, he's going to pan out. He could continue to struggle, whatever. But I think he goes to a good scheme fit. I'd imagine he plays guard because the Texans have Scruggs in there at center, but Green could be, maybe he starts at guard. Maybe he's a backup guard and a backup center, But 2025-6 for a guy that's only played 1 year, still has upside, pretty versatile. I think it's pretty decent, actually. I liked it at the 2025-6 on 2024 for this specific trade. And the Steelers, I gave a C+ to. I thought he deserved more of a trial. I guess they didn't really view him as a fit anymore. But he was just taken in the third round a couple years ago, and you're getting him a 2020. You're getting a sixth. 2025. I just thought, if it was one thing if he played like every game, for both years, and maybe you tried him at guard, and he just clearly did not work out. And another thing, they're kind of lacking on the depth there on the interior right now. So, overall, they did try him in the 1 year. They didn't like him. They're tweaking things on the offense line, some blocking schemes, a little bit different things. So they didn't really like the fit. So they got something for him. And it's not a 7th, it's a 6th. So I couldn't really give it any lower than a C+. But the more I was thinking about that, the more I'm like Green, he's not what he did his rookie year, and what I think is out of position definitely does not define the rest of his career. It's not set. That's what he will be. He might be. We'll see. But I think that's a little unfair. So B+ for the Texans, C+ for the Steelers on that one. The last two trades here, a very intriguing one, very interesting one. A cornerback swap, a guy that was a first-round pick in Noah Igbinoghene from Auburn, and then a year later, Kelvin Joseph, who was the second round pick, excuse me. So they swap corners there, and it's interesting because both have been playing man coverage as well. And I think Igbinoghene will continue to play that, in Dan Quinn. Vic Fangio is going to run a bit of man coverage, but we'll see some zone cover 4 in there as well. So, but yeah, very young, both high picks, but both underwhelming, both experienced in man coverage, both pretty damn athletic, but again, both been pretty damn underwhelming at the same time. So it's an interesting swap. So they both ended with a B+, and I hate that though, because it is a little boring. Like, who won the trade with this cornerback swap, who are kind of been the same, even though physically they're not the same corner, but who've kind of been the same idea of a corner so far. But that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at with the grades. And the reason being is I like Igbinoghene slightly more. And they both have upside. Maybe Joseph is, you could argue, just because of age. I guess that doesn't decide everything. Maybe he has a little bit more. But in terms of talent and then where they're going, what defense they're going to, I And Jospeh actually could play a little bit more because the injuries that the Dolphins, have already suffered and do suffer at corner. So maybe Jospeh might get some more playing time. But, I think Igbinoghene, I think he can play, well in Dan Quinn's defense, especially if he gets a shot, outside or maybe even inside. And just overall talent in terms of I'm kind of, because they're still in a way like young, still kind of prospects. I'm kind of going back to their tapes in college. So I liked him a little bit more. Jospeh always had those character concerns as well. So that was siding with the Cowboys. So why is it the same grade? It was very close, though, in terms of who I like more in the talent. But then you factor in Igbinoghene has 1 year left on his deal. Jospeh has 2. So if they're both guys that have been underwhelming and you want to work with them, you want to try to get them to reach that upside, Jospeh has 2 more years, so maybe it's a little more likely looking at it that way, and it's a very, very cheap contract. So that kind of evened it up for me. I like one guy a little bit more, but one guy has maybe a better chance at that upside since he has a 2-year deal on a cheap contract with the Dolphins. But we'll see. It's a curious one. It's a small one, but I'm curious to see how those guys pan out if they get a shot at all. But I do like the former Auburn corner and that Dan Quinn defense as well, though, for the Dallas Cowboys. So 2 B pluses. Totally have a winner in that one, but I explained both sides, so they're winners in different ways there. And then Albert O, it was actually announced that the Broncos were going to waive him, and then the Eagles end up trading for him. Usually I don't love that when that happens because he's going to get waived anyways, but then he was going to go to, in this scenario, he's going to go to, on waivers, and the Eagles had the second last pick on waivers, and you had a young tight end with upside, the best tight end that was going to be on waiver claims. I don't think there was a lot of surprising guys that got through waivers, obviously, the whole order. But I don't think Albert O would have been there for the Eagles. So if there was a team that kind of made sense to, hey, don't cut him, we'll trade for him, it was the Eagles. And it's just a swap pick. They do lose out on a 6th-round pick in 2025, but they get the 7th back. And I do like the fit as well. He potentially could reach that upside that we were kind of waiting on. It's not like he's been extremely underwhelming or anything, because did he have a whole lot of expectations? We know there's some potential in there. And how much of a chance has he gotten? I think he's actually looked decent in moments here and there. So I gave the Eagles a B+. Hard to give an A range because they do move on from a 6th. And it was a guy that was going to be cut. But again, overall, positive here. B+ for the Eagles. The Broncos get a 2025 6th. Give him an A-. Overall, they're going to move on from him, so they get something. It is a swap deal, but they get something there. Surprised they didn't kind of consider keeping him. Maybe you could argue, should they just keep him? But that wasn't, I guess, an option. They were either going to cut him or trade him. They trade him. But I give him an A- for those reasons there. So that wraps up all the trades that have happened recently. There was a lot of these were pretty damn recently, those last couple days there. So there could be more trades. I was kind of waiting for more trades to happen. There could be more, but things are kind of set right now. Teams are getting their roster set, and there's going to be another waiver claim period coming up. So teams are more focused on that. So we will see. But there will be that trade deadline, which is at the end of October, which we really cover. We have all those videos on that. So, but the in-season stuff, it's happening very soon. Cannot wait for all that. Hopefully you join us for all that. But that is going to wrap it up. This one, check out our recent content covering kind of the whole madness recently, the waivers, the signings, who's available, best available, Twitter. We talk about these things at all. Any link you're looking for, important links pinned in the comments. It's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.